My name is Jocelyn Ireland. I'm a librarian on the Utica campus of MVCC. We also have Claire Ehrlich on the call. She is going to be my backup presenter in case my computer decides to go kaput on me. So we have a little backup plan in case. So today, I'm going to be very quickly going over why citing your sources is important. But I'm going to spend most of the time on how to create APA-style citations for your reference page. And I'll be going over some examples myself. I'll be asking all of you to help me out create some entries from scratch. And whatever time we have left, we'll be talking about APA in-text citations, where to go for more help, and a little bit about formatting too. All right, so APA is short for American Psychological Association. We'll be using the 7th edition, which is the newest edition. I believe it was released in 2018, but anyone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. The APA style, I'll be mostly talking about a APA style citation guide that the Learning Commons and the library has developed. You can find this guide online. I'll be showing you where to do that, or in print at the library or the Learning Commons Writing Lab. And we created this guide based on the actual APA style publication manual. So everything that I'll be talking about today has come directly from the manual. And this manual talks about how to give credit to those that have contributed to your paper, so how to give credit to the people that you're getting your evidence from, your support, and also how to format your paper in APA style. So why is this even important? So obviously you want to get a good grade for your paper, right? You don't want to get in trouble for plagiarism. So that's the most obvious reason. So when you're citing your sources, it's important because you don't want to get in trouble to pass off someone's work as your own. And that's what citations are. You're giving credit where credit is due. Research is a conversation. So one person does a study, finds out something, and the next person builds on that. Either they agree with it or disagree with it. And that's how human knowledge moves forward. So you all are in college now, so you're increasingly going to be contributing to this scholarly communication. So you want to cite your sources in order to show off whose work you're building off of and make it easier for the next person to build off of your work. And you don't want that next person, your reader, to redo the work that you did and try to find the sources that you use, the support that you use. So you want to give them enough information in order to find your sources. So what do we cite? So obviously anything you've quoted word for word, but also anything that you're summarizing or paraphrasing. Basically any other ideas that you're getting from other people or other organizations. But there's some things that you don't need to cite. Of course, your analysis, your ideas, but also common knowledge. So the fact that George Washington was our first president, you don't need to cite that. Even if it's something that you have to look up real quick, but it's something most people generally already know, you don't have to cite that. And if you have any questions about what does or does not need to be cited, librarians or writing tutors were more than happy to help you understand that process. So very quickly, just going over the general APA style formatting rules when you're doing a paper. The font is typically Times New Roman, size 12. Some professors like other fonts, but most often you're going to be using Times New Roman, size 12 font. And if you're using like a MVCC college computer, that's not the default font, so you're going to have to change that. And the spacing for an APA style paper is double spaced. And I've got a little image here from Microsoft Word where you would go to get that double spacing. And you also want to remove extra spacing after paragraphs. So there's a little button under that line spacing button to remove that extra spacing after paragraphs. And also your margins are going to be 1 inch. And that's typically the default for either Google Docs or Microsoft Word. And this is a little screenshot of what it looks like in Google Docs of how to make your line spacing double. And I believe in Google Docs, it automatically doesn't do an extra spacing after paragraph. It's good to double check anyway. So an APA style title page, I'm not going to focus on this too much, but I just want to give a little visual of what this looks like. So for the 7th edition, you're going to put your title in bold. You're not going to do huge font or any special colors or designs. It's all supposed to be very simple. It's supposed to look uniform. So you put your title in bold, centered. You skip a line, and again, this is double spaced. You put your name, and then the college you go to. And it's a good idea to put it all out in writing, Mohawk Valley Community College. And then the class that you're in that you're writing the paper for. And then the professor's name. And then the due date for your paper. All right, so I'm going to show a little reference page example and talk a little bit about the formatting and highlight the construction of some of this. So I'm going to exit out of here and open up a sample paper. Claire, if you want to go ahead and put in the chat a sample paper. Oh, darn, yes, will do this. Thank you. All right, so again, here's the title page. Again, the title. Oh, and I didn't mention that the page number goes in the left-hand corner in the header. And you're going to want to use the Insert Page Number tool, either in Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and that way it automatically numbers every page in the left-hand top corner. All right, so I am going to skip down to the reference page. So the reference page starts on its own page. Again, it's still numbered. And the word references is in bold in the center. And again, notice that it's not really big font, it's not underlined. And so again, it's all supposed to be very simple, not fancy looking. So the first thing we'll notice is that all of the entries are in alphabetical order. So APA style citations generally start with the author's last name. And you'll notice in APA style citations that they do not include the author's first name or middle name. It's all just initials after the last name. So this is an example. It looks like a book. So the author's last name comes first, and then his first initial, the date that the book was published, the title of the book is in italics, and then the publisher is next. So the books are very easy, very short. And then the websites and journal articles, they tend to have a lot more information involved. So just as a basic overview of APA style citations, first comes who is the creator. Usually it's an author or organization. So you start out with who, and then you do when. So in APA style, the date is very important. So it comes directly after the creator, and that's always in parentheses. And notice how each one of these sections is ending with a period. So we have the author, period. We have the date, period. Then we have the title. So since this is a book, it's in italics. And you'll also notice in APA style citation, a lot of these titles are in sentence case. And there's some, I'm going to highlight when you don't do sentence case, but in a lot of these titles, you're going to do sentence case. And that just means only the first word is capitalized and everything else is lowercase. So just like you were writing a sentence, usually just the first word is capitalized, or proper nouns. So like America, that's going to be capitalized. And if you have a title that has a colon and has like a subtitle, the first word after that colon is also capitalized. So we have the creator who, we have when it was created, we have the title, and then sometimes there's like containers, like so if it's in like a journal article, It'll have the title of the journal that it came from next. So there's an example there. And then I'm going to go over this a little more in detail later, but it gives a little more detail about where, in which journal this article came from. And that has the page number. And then finally we have where is it? So if it's a website, that comes after the title. And with this journal article, it has a DOI, or digital object identifier, that comes after the publication information. So we have who, when, what, where this item is located. So if a reader is looking at this, they have all the information they need to be able to locate that source themselves. So again, all these entries are in alphabetical order. You notice that some of these have multiple authors. So an APA style citation, if your source has like 10 authors, you have to put all of those authors in the reference page entry. You have to give credit to all of those people that created it. So it goes the first author's last name, comma, their initials, comma, the next author's last name, their initials, and then so on. So again, it always starts out with the author's last name, their initials, and then before the last author has a little ampersand. So we're going to be going over in more detail examples of how these citations are constructed. I just want to give you a little visual of what it looks like and the basic components first. All right, so I'm going to switch back over to my presentation. This just goes over the basic tenets of that reference page. The references is centered at the bold, same formatting, double spaced, and usually that's alphabetized by the author's last name or the organization's name. Oh, and there's a hanging indent too. I didn't mention that. So the first line of the entry is aligned all the way over to the left. And if the citation has multiple lines, which they usually do, all the lines after the first line are indented ½ an inch. All right, so this is an example of a journal article citation. And I mentioned the APA style citation guide. So this is what it looks like. And again, it's going to be available too. So this citation guide will tell you how a citation, a reference entry is constructed. It gives you a template, an example, to help you model your citation after it. So this is an example of a journal article. So this particular journal article has 2 authors. So in the journal, it'll tell you the 2 authors' names, and often it'll give you like the author's first names or middle names too. So all you want is just their last name, comma, first initial. If there's a middle initial, put that too, but if there's not, just continue on. And again, notice there's a comma in between these authors. And this one has 2 authors, so it has a little ampersand dividing up the 2 authors' names. And then it just has all the other publication information plugged in where it needs to go. So this template will tell you, so your publication goes in the parentheses, there's a period, then the title of the article. So for journal articles, the title just looks like a regular sentence. The title of the journal article, it's not italicized, it doesn't come in quotation marks like MLA style does, just looks like a sentence. And then after the journal article title, there's a period, and then the title of the journal. So the title of the journal that the article is published in, that is in italics, and you can actually capitalize the major words of the journal title. So you don't have to capitalize like a or of or the unless it comes at the very beginning. And then after the journal title, comes a comma, and then the volume number, which is also italicized. And then in parentheses, there's an issue number, and then a comma, the page range where this article is located, and then the DOI. Now, what's really, really nice is if you can get your journal articles from the library website, because the library website will construct a citation for you. So let me just highlight that real super quick. So I'm on the library website, nbcc.edu/library. I'm just going to put in a simple search question. Just put my topic in. And I'm just going to pick a random article. So when you find an article you want, I'm just going to click on it. And let's say I review this article. I think this is perfect for my paper. I definitely am going to use it. So make sure you save your citation right when you find it. It'll really help you later on. So when you find your article, there is a citation button. So if I just click on the citation button, it gives me a sample citation. So here it is. Now, if you're doing other citation formats, there's different citation formats, and this one automatically went to APA style citation. So I can just copy this and put it right in my reference page. Now, you do have to review these citations because they're made by a machine and they're not always done 100% correctly. So I'll just review it real quick. And again, I'm going to use my APA style citation guide to look at the template and see how a citation should be constructed. So it has the author's names, it has the date, period, the article title. So what I would do, I would make this D lowercase because it should look like a sentence. Then the journal title in italics, and it can have those major words capitalized. That's fine for the journal title. Then comma, the volume number, and that's in italics. The issue number, comma, the page range, period, and the DOI. So the only thing I would change about this is just make that D lowercase. Other than that, the citation looks fantastic. So you see how quick that was. I didn't really need to change very much about that. So that's a huge plus when you're using the library website for your sources. It will create a citation for you, whether it's a book, ebook, a video. You'll find citations for pretty much any source you find on the library website. So that makes your citations a lot quicker. But do make sure you review it. So that last example was an example of a journal article. So reference pages can be a little trickier because web pages, you have to create the citation yourself. So for a web page, you're going to start out with the same thing, the creator. Hopefully it's someone's name or multiple names. This example is one when it's an organization that's responsible for the content. So there's not a specific person that is giving credit for the source. A lot of times with web pages, it's a whole organization that's responsible for their web page content. So this is an example is National Institute of Mental Health. So that's who the author is, then the period, and hopefully there's a publication date on that web page article. If there is no publication date, you're not going to use the copyright date. Sometimes web pages don't have a specific date that a web page has been created. So if you find a web page that doesn't have a publication date, you're going to use the initials N period, D period for no date. And I'll have an example of that later on so you can see what that looks like. So if there's no date, you're going to put N period, D period, but hopefully there is a date. And sometimes web pages also have a specific day that something was posted. So if there is a day, it would come after the month. So if this was like posted May 25th, it would go 2019, comma, May space 25, and then close the parentheses. So for web pages, the web page title is going to be in italics. And notice it's also sentence case. So only the first word or pronouns will be capitalized. Other than that, it's going to look like a sentence. So oftentimes the web pages, they have every word capitalized. So you're going to just have to know, even though it shows up capitalized on the web page, you're not going to put it capitalized in your citation. So after the web page title in italics is a period, and then comes the title of the website. Sometimes the title of the website is the same thing as the organization. So if that's the case, you don't have to put that in twice. So in this particular example, they do not put the title of the website because it's the same as the organization. But sometimes there is a title of the website, like New York Times, or whatever organization it might be, but there is a specific author for that web page. So it depends. Again, you don't have to duplicate information. After the title of the website, which will not be italicized, oops, it's just going to be regular font, and you can capitalize major words of the title of the website. And then period, and then the URL. So you're just going to copy and paste the URL. So again, your reader can get to that same web page. So this is an example of a book. Books tend to be quite easy citations to construct. So you're just going to put the author or author's names, the year, the title of book in italics, and it's in sentence case, so just the first word usually is capitalized, or the word after a colon is capitalized. Sometimes books have multiple editions, so if there is an edition, you're going to put that in parentheses after the title, and followed by a period after the edition or the title of the work, and then the publisher. So I'm going to have an example so we can construct this together. But that's the basic components of a book citation. So just reviewing some quick things to mention. So for the authors, again, the authors' names are inverted. The last name comes first, followed by their initials. And if there's multiple authors, some works have just a ton of authors, and I'm sorry, you have to put all the authors' names up until like 20. And if it's an organization, it's not a specific person, that's who you're going to put for the author. And you do not have to include their titles. So sometimes, particularly with journal articles or for like a scholarly website, they'll have the author's education after their names. You do not have to put that. You don't have to put PhD. And it's just the author's last name, comma, initials. So in terms of the date, usually it's just a year, but sometimes with websites, it has a particular month and even a particular day. And if it does not have a date, again, you're not going to use the copyright date on websites. If there's not a particular date for that web page, you're just going to put N period D period in lowercase. And notice that there is a period after the parentheses. All right, before I head into in-text citations, let's do a little practice. Sarah, did you want me, were there any questions I need to address first? I haven't been.
I'm muted, that's fine. Not so far, but if anyone has a question, now might be a good time to jump in.
I know I'm going over this super fast, but I'm going to show you where you can find all this information to yourself. All right, so let's do an example together. So this is an example of a physical book. So I took a picture of the cover and then of the title page on the next page. So we see the author's name. There's 2 authors. We see the title. I notice that this is a 9th edition. And the publisher is at the bottom is Pearson. And notice it also gives the author's credentials after their names. So I'm going to try to construct this citation. So I'm going to, go forward. So for this citation, let me see if it'll let me. No, it won't. Okay, so I need to exit out of this. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag these boxes. So I have 2 options for the author. Do I put the author's names with their first names, or do I just use this one that has the initials? Go ahead and put the answer in the chat. I'm going to get some of this. Which one am I using here? The one with the first name or with the initials?
People are pretty unanimously saying the ones with the initials.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to delete that out. The one with the first names. And notice I did not include their education. Last names, initials. Perfect. And I have a little ampersand before the second author's names, ends with a period. Okay, so what comes after the author's names? I'm going to bring up the...
We've got several people putting the publication date.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to bring up the template too so we can look at this. So we have the authors. Now we see, okay, year of publication. So year of publication goes next. And I found that from on this page, it'll usually say the year of publication. And you just use, if there's multiple years, sometimes, particularly when there's like multiple editions, sometimes they list multiple years. You just use the most recent year available. All right,
Jocelyn,
so we have
I
the
just saw someone had a really good question.
Yep, go ahead.
When you have multiple authors, do you put the authors in alphabetical order?
A great question. So you're going to put the authors in the order that they're listed in the source. So Elaine is the first author listed, both on the cover and on the title page. So she is the first author listed, so that's the first author we're going to use. That's a great question. So even though the second author, alphabetically, her name might come first in the alphabet, she's not listed first, so we're going to use the first author listed. Great question. So that's why I put Elaine's last name first. All right, so after the year of publication, if we look at our template for our book, you see what comes next. And I'm taking a special look at how it's capitalized too. So which option of the title of the book should I use? Should I use the one where the major words are capitalized, or the ones that's in sentence case? I'll bring up the template again. So this is the example.
Got a few people saying sentence case.
Sentence case. That is correct. So, you know what? When I'm constructing citations, I always need the citation guide right next to me because I cannot remember when I have to do sentence case or capitalize all the major words. So that's why having a template right near you, it's like, oh, for a book, I need to italicize it, and the major words are not capitalized. So I'm going to use this version next. Beautiful. So next, I'm going to tell more information about this book. What edition is it? So in my example, it's telling me the edition number. And further down, I see an example of what that edition should look like. So should I use this version that has the numeral, or the one that's all spelled out?
Everyone is saying the numeral.
Beautiful. So I'm going to click and drag that next, and I'll just delete this one off. And I'll delete this one off too. Extra. And you'll notice that when it has an edition, I don't put a period or a comma after the book title. It just goes right into the edition, and then comes the period. But if I did not have a multiple edition, if it just had the title, then a period will come right after the title. So the edition is just kind of like part of the title. It's like a continuation of it. So I have my edition with a period, and I abbreviated edition. You can just put ED period. And then next comes the publisher. I don't have to put the publisher's location. That's something you used to have to do. Now it's a lot more simple. You just put the publisher's name. And I found the publisher on the title page at the very bottom is Pearson. Sometimes the publisher is also given on the title, but it's almost always on the title page for a book. So we have the authors, the date, the title, the edition, and the publisher. Nice, short. And if this was an ebook on the library website, it most likely would have also had a citation in the items record. So I could have just copy and pasted that, but this is an actual physical book. All right, so the next example is a lot more challenging. So I'm gonna open up the website. So this is an example of a website, and a web page, I should say, and it is a government publication. So government publications can be super tricky. So we'll see what I mean by that. So first thing I'm going to do is try to find a template to basically mirror my citation after. So this is a website, webpage, and it does have an author. So I'm going to first go to my table of contents. All right, so let me talk about the table of contents real quick too. So in this citation guide, Claire, did we already put the link to this in the chat box?
I did, but I'm going to put it again.
Okay, perfect.
The more the merrier.
Love it. So in the citation guide, the first kind of section is all about formatting. So what font you should use, how headings look, how block quotes work, what a formatting looks like for the reference page, what the title page looks like. So a lot about formatting in the beginning part of the citation guide. Next comes in-text citations, which we're going to address a little bit. So there's a nice big section all about how to credit your sources within your paper. And then the last part, which takes up the major bulk of this, is all about the reference page entries. So it gives examples of if your source has one author, two authors, multiple authors, so how that citation should look in your reference page. What happens if it is an organization? What happens if an editor and an author? So a lot of different tricky examples of what could happen with your sources. So examples of all of those. And then different types of sources. So journal articles, newspaper articles, blog posts, and then books. An essay or a chapter that has its own author within an edited collection. So those can be tricky. What about if you're citing a dictionary or encyclopedia? Those are reference works. And then all about media, like online videos or a DVD. And then web pages or social media posts. And then class resources or Blackboard posts. So that's just an overview of the table of contents, where you can find all this information from. So again, my example is a web page. So I'm going to go to the web page, and there is an author. So I'm going to click on web page with author, and that'll hyperlink me to that section. All right, so I see we need to start out with the author's last name and then initials. So I'm going to go to my source. So this author is Tom File. And I actually had to double check that is an actual real name. It is the person's real name. Their last name is File. So we're going to start off with our citation with file, comma, his initial. All right, so I'm going to go to my citation, and there's lots of pieces for this citation. So I'm going to get some of this out of the way. Lots of pieces. All right, so we've already discovered that we don't want the person's first name, so I'm just going to delete that one off. We want the author's first name, comma, first initial. So that's the first thing in our citation. And then next, according to my template, we have the date. So when was this created? So this does give a date. It doesn't give a specific day, but it does give a month. So for a web page, if it gives more specific information than just a month, than a year, we're going to include that in our citation. So the next part goes the date. So we have the author's last name, comma, first initial, the date in parentheses. So first comes the year, comma, month. And if there was a day, it would come after the month, but there's not a day. All right, so I'm going to get rid of just this year one. All right, and according to our template, we want the web page title. Web page title. So this is a little tricky because there's a lot of information here. We have this title, we have this title, and we have this title. So what do we put? Any ideas? What should I put for my web page title? Should I use the characteristics? Should I start it with population characteristics? Should I put current population reports? Which one is the title?
We've got a couple people saying the characteristics of voters, blah, blah, blah.
Yep, okay. So, perfect. So that is the title that I should be using as my web page title or my government report title. Now, should I italicize it or just leave it like a sentence? So if I look at my template, it tells me to italicize the web page title. So are we in agreement that that's what we should do? Web page title italicized?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. So I'm just going to get that one out of the way. See if I can make this a little bigger. Okay. It's coming off my slide a little bit. That's okay. All right. So in my source, it has this population characteristics. It's kind of like a subtitle. So even though there's not a colon here, since that is our subtitle, we're going to put a colon and put that subtitle next. And notice how it's in sentence case. I didn't capitalize all these words, even though it's capitalized here. And I put a colon and put the subtitle next. And notice how I did capitalize the first word after the colon. All right, looking back at this. All right, web page title. So the web page title. Now I'm still a little tricked by this though. So this one's a little tricky. Current population report. So that's kind of telling me maybe this is like a part of a larger collection. That changes things up a little bit. That is extra tricky. So I might just do a quick Google search This is coming, by the way, from the U.S. Census Bureau. Does the U.S. Census Bureau have a collection of current population reports? So I could do a quick Google search and find out that yes, they do. So this is like a part of a larger collection. So that really changes things up, actually. So if this is a part of a larger collection, it's almost like this is like an article of a larger collection. So if that's the case, then we actually might need to change this up a little bit. So if this is like an article, so it's like part of a larger collection, we actually might use this one instead. And I know that's tricky because it's a website, right? So what web page titles, you would think, always go in italics. And I don't want to confuse everybody, but I just want to show how things can get a little tricky. So even though we got this from the web, this is actually an article title that's part of a larger collection of reports. So in this example, we're going to put it like it's an article title. Sorry, ignore that. An article title, which just looks like a sentence, not italicized, and then put the collection that it's in italics next. And then for that collection, we can capitalize all the major words. Now, for your citation, if you did do this, like did this, acted like it was a website and just let this off, you know what? I don't think your instructor is going to mark you down for that. This is just an example of how things can get really tricky sometimes, and you're just going to have to use your best judgment and follow the template as best you can. So don't really stress out too much for these really tricky ones, but if I was creating the citation, this is how I would put it. So it's like an article of a larger collection, so I'm not going to italicize this. And I'm going to put the collection that it's in next in italics. And then, let's see, I believe next goes the document number, if I remember correctly. I should probably get I believe there is an example of a government document in here actually, so I should probably bring that up. Government document. Not sure if there is. Can't remember off the top of my head. There's a government document example in here. Maybe reports. Yeah, this one I think it was. Okay. All right, so now if I'm switched to an example where there is a government document example. So after the title comes the document number. So that's what this is here. That's the document number. And then we can put who is responsible for this, like the organization or the title. We could also think of it as kind of like the title of the website too. So this is coming from the U.S. Census Bureau's website. And then, oops, what? We can also put the page range. So since this is a PDF, this does have page numbers on it. So if I'm going to be like citing a statistic from page 3, I can let the reader know this is a 1 through 20 page document. Then we have the Census Bureau and then the URL. And notice how there's not a period at the end of the URL or if there was a DOI. So that was an example of an extremely tricky citation example. But as long as you have as much information as you can get and in the order that the template gives you, so we have the author, we have the year, we have the article's title, we have the collection that it came from, we have the document number, we have the page range, we have the organization or website title. I messed it up a little bit. And then we had where we got this source from, the URL. So our reader will be able to locate, and we gave the author his credit. So just an example of how tricky citations can get, because not everything fits into our kind of box idea of what a source information should entail. All right, so we still got about 10 minutes.
There's a question.
Yep.
Says, so you no longer need to write retrieved from in your reference.
That is a great thing to notice. That is correct. So in APA style citations, you used to have to put retrieved from, and with the newest edition, you don't have to do that anymore. Yeah.
Every once in a while, things actually get easier.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, with the newest edition, things did get a little easier. Super nice. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left to talk about in-text citations. All right. And by the way, if you want to stay after, and if you have any questions about a particular project that you're doing, we can certainly go through specific citation questions afterwards too. All right, so in-text citations are how you're going to give credit to your sources within your paper. So it's just a little bit of information that can direct the reader to the full entry in the reference page. And there's two major ways that you can do an in-text citation. So we have the signal phrase option, and we have a parenthetical citation option. So let's take a look at those. So each in-text citation should have a full citation in your reference page. And same thing in your reference page, if you have a source listed in your reference page, there should be an in-text citation somewhere in your paper. Whether you use it once or multiple times, it should at least be noted somewhere in your paper. So let's see, for this Lang example, this is the in-text citation pointing the reader to that source. So this is an example of when the writer is using a signal phrase with this Lang example here. So the writer put Lang, then you put the year, underscored, blah, 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 blah. So with the in-text citation, it includes usually three major parts. It includes author or author's name. So if your source has two authors, you're going to put both those authors in there. And if it just has one, you're just going to put that one author. So for the signal phrase option, if you're integrating the author's name in your writing, you're going to put the author's name and then follow their name by the year. So that's signaling to the reader, okay, this is an outside source that this writer is using. So it has the author's name, the year in parentheses, and then usually some sort of signal phrase or a verb to introduce the quote or paraphrase or summary. Alternatively, you can also use the parenthetical option. So there's two examples of that here. So that is when you're writing, and whether maybe you talk about a statistic or an idea, and you don't mention the author's name anywhere in the sentence leading up to it, you can just put the citation information in parentheses at the end of the sentence. So this particular source has two names. So we put both authors' last names. Notice we don't have to put initials in the in-text citation, just the last name. So we put both authors' last name, comma, the year. Now, if the source had a page number, we would also include the page number. But this particular source looks like it is a some sort of source that doesn't have a page number, at least. And so this one particular one did not have a page number, or it was just a paraphrase that didn't need a page number. But if you're quoting something word for word and it does have a page number, you do need to include a page number after the date. I'll see if I can get an example of that. Okay. All right, so again, the in-text citations, they generally include the author's last name, the year, and the page number. So example, last name, comma, year, comma, P dot, and then the number for a quoted source. Notice how the period comes after the parentheses. So whether you're paraphrasing it, an idea, or a statistic in your own words, you're summarizing an author's idea, or quoting it word for word, you're going to include some sort of in-text citation. So research papers very often have a lot of in-text citations. Claire, if you want me, if you need to interrupt me, go ahead. I'm not.
I think you covered it, but it might be just worth reading. Someone was asking about the page numbers. So I was just loudly, I realized I hadn't muted myself. Kind of reiterating what you had said. If it's a direct quote and you have the page number available, you always use it. I also added, I know there are some instructors who want you to always use the page number, even though APA doesn't require it. So that's a case where you would ask your instructor to make sure you're doing what they want.
Yeah, me personally, I always include page numbers. If it's coming from a particular page, I just do it.
When in doubt, more information is better than less.
Exactly. All right, so I have some examples of multiple, different authors' examples for in-text citations. So this is an example of two different ways you could cite something. I have the parenthetical way and then the signal phrase as well. So this first example, it's just kind of paraphrasing an idea. Then it has the author's last name, comma, year, comma, and the page number. Close the parentheses and period at the end. So the citation is part of the sentence. So even though this was not a direct quote, you can still include a page number. And then the second way is the signal phrase way, where you're including the author's last name somewhere in the sentence. So Ehrlich, and then the year directly after the author's name. Said, that's our signal phrase, our little verb there. And then continues on with whatever you're quoting or paraphrasing. And then if there's a particular page number, that comes at the end of the sentence in parentheses. So no matter which way we put it, we included the three major components: the author's name, the year, and the page number.
We had another good question in the chat. If there isn't a date on the source, what do you do?
Yep, great question. So in your reference page entry, if you have N period D period for no date, there isn't a year associated with the article or web page. So and your reference entry is really going to model what you're going to put for your in-text citation. So that's why it's always really a good idea to do your reference page entry first, because that will model how your in-text citation should look. So if there's not a date, so if there wasn't a date for the source, you would just put Ehrlich, comma, N period D period, comma, P.3, and close the quotes. And then for this example, you would do the same thing, author's last name, parentheses, N period D period, close the quote, and then continue on. So you just replace the year with no date, abbreviated. Hope that answered the question. If you want further clarification, feel free to ask more. So in my next example, I have two authors. In text citation, two different ways. So for two authors, if you're using the signal phrase example, you're going to put both authors' last names. You know, you can always kind of explain who these authors are too. So if you want to say like researchers from the University of California, Ehrlich and Fry, you can always kind of give the reader an idea who these people are. Why are they experts? Why are you citing them too? It's always kind of nice to give some sort of credentials within your writing of why you're citing these people to support your ideas. But regardless, so we have the author's last names, then the date after their names, and then a signal phrase, the little the verb, and then whatever you're quoting or paraphrasing, and then we have the page number at the end. And then the next example is the parenthetical way. So in this example, I did not include anything about the authors in my sentence. I just put the author's names in the parentheses, comma, year, comma, page number, close it. And if this source did not have a page number, I would just include the year. You could just omit the page number if there's no page number. All right, next.
Jocelyn, I just want to interrupt real quick. We are at 11 o'clock, so I just want to remind everyone, if you do have to run off, this is being recorded. We will put it up on our YouTube channel as soon as the technological stuff works its way out in the background. So if you do need to go, you can watch the rest of this later.
Thank you, Claire. Yep, there's just a few more things. I just want to give an example. If your source has 3 or more authors, and this is actually new with the newest edition. So if your source has multiple authors, more than 2, you can just replace the authors after the first author with the term et al., which is Latin for and others. So in my signal phrase way, I have the first author's last name followed by et al. So I'm just saying like this author and others, then the year, and then my signal phrase and my quote, and then the page number that this source is coming from. So you see it has a pattern. It has the authors, has the year, and then at the end has the page number if available. And then this example is a parenthetical way. So the author's names are not mentioned at all in this. It's just in parentheses at the end. So we have the first author's last name, et al., comma, and I know it's a little weird, there's a period and then a comma, that's just the way it is. And the year, comma, page number, and then remember the period at the end after the parentheses. Just some very quick tips. Make sure you're reading your assignment very carefully. Some instructors have very specific requirements for both how you're citing and how you're formatting your people and your requirements, so make sure you're reading your assignment very carefully. Cite everything you get from another source. Writing tutors are wonderful with helping you identify what you should cite and helping you form your ideas. Writing tutors are available by appointment, in person or online. Another tip is to add in-text citations as you write. So you don't want to write something and then forget, oh, I got this source from something else. This is not my own words, or this is not my idea. So adding in-text citations as you write is really important so you don't accidentally plagiarize. There are citation generators. I showed you the one on the library website that will create a citation for you, but you always need to proofread it. And again, having that citation guide, that template with you is really helpful. And too much information is better than too little. So if you're not sure if you include it, you can just shoot a librarian a chat message, ask a writing tutor, but when in doubt, just add that information in your citation. I want to tell you that there is, if you have like a web page and you have really no idea how to cite it, Zoterobib is on the citation generator I tend to use if I really have no clue how to cite something. So that is zbib.org. Again, I really encourage you to ask a librarian too with your citations. And again, on the library website, that's what the citation button looks like after you click on the title. And you already have the link to the APA style citation guide. Purdue OWL is also a really great website to use for citation questions. And again, librarian or writing tutors, we're more than happy to help you, whether in person or online. And that's all I had for you. I'm sorry I went over my time. Any more questions?
Lots of people saying thank you.
Oh, that's nice. Well, thanks for joining. Maisie, did you want to unmute? I'm sorry if we missed your hand raise.
No, I just did it right now. I just
okay.
want to interrupt you
No worries.
during your
Thanks.
presentation. In Word, this is just a Word problem with me.
Gotcha.
When you have to do the running header, it's going to be different than the front page. People are putting in the right-hand section, right-aligned page number by insert page number. But then you can't put in the left section the running header because that'll show up on the first page. What do you recommend that we do?
Gotcha. So with the newest APA style citation, it no longer requires that running header.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, yep. So now you only have to put the page number in the upper right-hand corner. You don't have to put the word running header and the title in the header anymore.
So is the header an inch from the margin? I don't even know that offhand. Is that where it's supposed to be?
I'm just going to open up Word right now. So I'm going to it does it however the Word does it by default.
Yes,
fine. So,
I think.
Yep, so I'm going to go to Insert, Page Number, Top of Page, and the right-hand side. And I'm going to make sure I change my font to Times New Roman, size 12. And so that's all you really have to do now for APA style papers in the header. You used to have to do different first page, select this little checkbox. That's what you used to have to do when you had to write the words running head and put the title in there. You don't have to do that anymore.
Right, what would happen is it would throw off the one though if you use the auto number. It was annoying, Jocelyn.
It was. No, I totally agree. Yeah, you'd have to select that different first page first, because if you put the page number and then select it, then it would delete it. And that was always super annoying.
Someone's asking in chat, is the cover page page 1, or do you start page 1 with the first body page?
Great question. So I know some instructors don't want you to put a page number on the first one, but for APA style, they do put page 1 as the title page. So if the instructor doesn't say to do otherwise, you do put page 1 on the title page. But for like your page length requirements, that does not count obviously as a page. Their instructor is just going to count the pages with you actually have your body text. But as you can see with these APA style samples, the cover page does have page 1, and then the next page has page 2, and so on. All right, well, if there's nothing else, again, thank you very much, and we'll get this recording on our YouTube channel, and let librarians or writing tutors know if you have any questions about citations. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you everyone for coming.